Welcome to the third annual Global Colorectal Cancer Congress. Our time has come. I'm Nicole Sheehan, and I'm honored to serve as the president of the GCCA. This year's Congress features global colorectal cancer thought leaders sharing best practices, challenges, and opportunities for advocacy organizations of all sizes. The agenda covers a wide range of topics designed to support you in building your patient advocacy organization or to strengthen your skills as a patient or caregiver advocate. Over the next 2 days, some of the topics we'll cover include what it's like to start and grow a patient advocacy organization, employing your own personal motivation to advocate for change, engaging through social media channels, and messaging and engaging with policymakers, and more. We're also highlighting 2 topics that demand more attention for our global colorectal cancer community. One is DPYD genetic testing prior to the start of certain chemotherapy treatments to minimize the risk of severe toxicity. And the other is understanding biologics and biosimilar medicines, an overview. We invite you to share your thoughts and comments with us using the chat feature or via social media channels. Tag us in your comments or questions with @GlobalCRC. Use hashtag GlobalCRC22 or send us an email to info@globalcca.org. All of our presentations will be available on demand by visiting gccacongress.org. We look forward to interacting with everyone during the scheduled breaks and networking sessions, so please visit us and our exhibitors in the attendee hub. We're thankful for our speakers for their time and expertise, and to our sponsors for supporting this program. 2022 is a very special year for the Global Colon Cancer Association, and I'd like to now turn it over to the co-founder and executive director of the GCCA, Andy Spiegel, to share a little bit about why.
Thank you, Nicole. And I join Nicole in welcoming everybody to our third annual conference, also our third annual virtual conference, which I know last year we told you that we were going to be in person this year, and we really thought we were, but didn't work out that way. But we do hope that this pandemic passes this year, and by next year in 2023, we will absolutely be together somewhere in person and be able to meet and do the things that we do at conferences that help us succeed. As Nicole mentioned, this is a very special year for us and me personally, because I co-founded this organization, and this year is our 10-year anniversary. So I'm really proud of where we've come in the last 10 years, how much we've grown, the fact that we have more than 50 members from more than 30 countries, and we are continuing to grow. And really proud of where we've come. And I'm even more excited about where we're going. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Global Colon Cancer Association, why it was formed, how it was formed, a little bit about my background. I got into the colon cancer or bowel cancer space way back in the late 1990s, when my mother was diagnosed with metastatic colon. And remember back then the internet was relatively new, and we jumped on the internet to see what was going on. What was this disease we had never heard of? Colon cancer, colorectal cancer. Back in the 90s in the United States, colorectal cancer was not on the map. It was not talked about. There were no screening guidelines and recommendations being pushed by the medical community. Physicians were not advised and were not ordering screening tests for their patients at any age, let alone age 50 or 45 as it is now. And as a result, colorectal cancer in the United States was really growing very rapidly, and it was the second leading cause of cancer death, still is the second leading cause of cancer death. And as a result, we were really frustrated that how could people not have heard of the second leading cause of cancer death? How could people not have screening programs set up when there are screening tools that we know that we could prevent this disease with? Why are there not patient advocacy organizations that are addressing this disease when we look at other diseases that are, I hate to say more popular, but certainly get more visibility in the public? Why do they have dozens and dozens, sometimes hundreds of patient advocacy groups, but there are none for colon cancer? And a group of us felt the same way. And we got together and we formed what is now the Colorectal Cancer Alliance in the United States. It's the oldest and it's the largest nonprofit in the world for colorectal cancer. And I'm really proud of where that organization has come over the last 20 years. And you're going to hear from the CEO during this conference, Michael Sapienza, who's going to tell you all the great things the CCA continues to do. But I used to be the CEO of the CCA. And during that time, I was approached by our European counterparts. At the time, they were called Europa Colon. And the CEO, her name was Yola. And Yola got in touch with me and discussed with me the possibility of creating a global organization for colon cancer patients. And the idea was that over the last 20 years, and that time 10 years, the Colon Cancer Alliance and other US-based nonprofit organizations really grew quickly, really moved the needle. And the success story of the colon cancer movement in the United States is one of great success. The screening rate is somewhere around 70% now, which is not high enough, but better than most of the world. And it is also a place where you have access to numerous screening modalities, from colonoscopies to FIT tests, to DNA-based tests, to basically any kind of colon screening you want. And also have access to the latest medicines and the latest innovative medicines. And I remember when we only had one drug for colorectal cancer back in the late 1990s. And now we're knocking on the door of getting almost 20 drugs approved in the United States. And as a result, we have seen the screening rates go way up. We have seen the death rates go way down. And the colon cancer patient movement is a success story in the United States, without a doubt. But what we wanted to do was take that information that we had learned and spread it around the world. And we know that there are many regions around the world which have had a slower time getting involved in the colon cancer movement, either because they weren't involved with the disease at that time, or the disease may have not been very prevalent in their country at the time, but it certainly is now, because we've seen this disease growing like a weed across the world. A little bit of statistics for you to digest. When I got involved with this organization, there were no global statistics on colorectal cancer. Most countries don't have patient registries and don't keep statistics on colon cancer. At least they didn't then. And as a result, we don't even know how many people were getting colon cancer 20 years ago. But what we do know is that the colon cancer incidence rates worldwide is exploding. A couple of years ago, it was about 1 million patients who were getting diagnosed every year. Then it went to 1.2 million. The last data I saw a year or two ago was 1.6 million. And now the data is knocking on the door of 2 million people diagnosed with colorectal cancer each year. And data also shows that that number is expected to continue to grow wildly, and that the colon cancer community, the incidence rate, it's all going to nearly double in the next 10 to 15 years. And so what you're going to hear about at this conference today is a lot of the work that we've been doing behind the scenes, that we are going to make sure that policymakers, healthcare providers, governments, all of the payers, that everybody involved understands this sea of colon cancer that's coming, this wave of colon cancer that is coming. And we are going to work with them to make sure that they are ready for this wave, and that they're able to accurately and appropriately address this incredible increase in colon cancer cases that are coming and that are here now. So you're going to hear over the next 2 days incredible information. We have brought together thought leaders from all over the world. They're going to talk about things that have succeeded in their communities, things that have not succeeded, takeaways for you to learn to be a better advocate, to maybe be an advocate for the first time. We have a program coming up in May that you're going to hear about over the next 2 days, where we're going to educate advocates and patients about biologics and biosimilars. And you have to know this information because it's going to be a part of your treatment plan and the treatment plan of those who you serve if you are a patient advocate. More than 1 billion people worldwide have benefited from biologic medicines. And so we have been working behind the scenes for the last 10 years with policymakers all over the world to make sure that biosimilars are, as they come out, are patient friendly. We'll explain all of this to you during the conference and in our biosimilars training program. I'm going to turn it back over to Nicole to talk about some of our programs. Nicole?
Thank you, Andy. As someone who's been a leader in the colorectal cancer field for more than 20 years, he's seen firsthand how much has changed in the United States. But when we look at the global landscape of resources and organizations that exist to fight this disease, it's hard not to be outraged. So when we talk about the success in the United States or other countries that have experienced an increase in screening and a decrease in deaths, we applaud the efforts of those that made that shift possible, but we know that there is still so much work to be done in the US and beyond to prevent the suffering and death that's caused by this disease. Make no mistake, today, where you live impacts your ability to get screened, receive timely treatment, and access to critical tests and clinical trials. The problem of colorectal cancer, a largely preventable disease, exists throughout the world. In fact, that's why the GCCA was founded. Our organization exists to ensure that everyone, regardless of where you live, has access to screening, treatment, and tests that guide treatment options, such as comprehensive biomarker testing. We're proud to partner with these 50 patient advocacy organizations, and they represent 30 countries. But for a disease that 1.9 million people are diagnosed with each year, and nearly 1 million people die from each year, colorectal cancer has not yet received the global attention on the scale that it deserves. For many patients diagnosed with colorectal cancer, they research and look for support or ways to make an impact, and they find that there is no organization or efforts dedicated to this disease. Our goal is to partner with organizations and initiatives of all sizes so that we can unite to change the future of this disease. If no colorectal cancer organization exists in your country, contact us. We're working with advocates around the world to connect existing organizations or to create one in countries where none exist. As you'll see and hear today, that our speakers have had an incredible impact, and it is possible for one person to make a difference. So if you are involved with a colorectal cancer organization or initiative and are not yet a partner of the GCCA, reach out. There's many ways to make a difference in your country, as you'll hear today. I'd like to share a few key initiatives of the Global Colon Cancer Association, and I'll start with today, our 2022 Colorectal Cancer Congress. It is, as Andy mentioned, both our third annual event as well as our third annual virtual event. We can't wait to come together in person for our fourth annual event. And the goal of this event is really to unite as a community and learn from one another, to connect, build relationships, and work together in changing the future of this disease. We're so grateful for the leaders of organizations from around the world taking the time to share insights and collaborate. At the end of this event, you'll be asked to fill out a survey, letting us know what you liked, what you thought could be improved, and if you want to get involved with the 2023 Colorectal Cancer Congress or any GCCA initiatives. So we hope you'll fill out the survey and get involved. The second program I'll give a brief overview of is Know Your Biomarker. If you aren't familiar with biomarkers and why they're so important in colorectal cancer, it's worth learning. I know that many people attending our Congress today are familiar with biomarkers, so bear with me for a moment as I share just a little bit because it's that important. As an advocate, you've hopefully experienced the joy of finally convincing that family member or friend to get screened for colorectal cancer. Well, it's kind of like that. We need more advocates to talk about the importance of biomarker testing. And when it's not available or affordable, we need to get loud and have our voices heard. Again, it's that important. So if you're wondering what a biomarker is, simply put, it's information about your health. Your weight, blood pressure, cholesterol level, and your blood type even are all examples of biomarkers. Now, there are different categories of biomarkers, and understanding your test results can quickly get complicated. Knowing if you have a genetic mutation or if your tumor type is positive for KRAS or BRAF, HER2, MSS, MSI high, to name a few, can not only help determine what treatments may be more effective in fighting an individual's cancer, but it can also eliminate treatments that are not likely to be effective. Not all biomarkers have approved targeted therapies to combat colorectal cancer, but in some cases, clinical trials may be an option. We know that these conversations on testing need to be taking place sooner and more often. And that's why we created Know Your Biomarker, and we're working with partners around the world to bring biomarker awareness to your country. Right now, we have a survey open that will soon be closing around biomarker testing. So if you are a person who has or has had colorectal cancer, or if you're a caregiver to someone who has or has had colorectal cancer, please consider taking a few minutes to take the survey. And if you are a caregiver and your loved one has passed away, we invite you to take the survey on their behalf, and we appreciate it. Results so far with the survey are showing that overwhelmingly, when biomarker testing is taking place, patients and caregivers do not have a clear understanding of how these results can impact their treatment options. And as precision medicine or targeted therapies continue to evolve, it's so important that patients and caregivers be an active voice in building treatment plans. Access to these tests continue to be a challenge, and we're proud to partner in lobbying action. On knowyourbiomarker.org, we have featured videos of Tom, Carol, and Luann. Later this year, we'll be releasing videos and other materials in 6 different languages: Arabic, Chinese, French, Spanish, Portuguese, both Brazilian and universal. If your organization would like to utilize translated materials for Know Your Biomarker and other initiatives, please reach out and keep an eye out, as we'll be introducing additional stories from patients and caregivers from around the world with diversity on specific biomarkers as well as the type of experience. I'd like to introduce you to Tom Vibert, a spokesperson for our Know Your Biomarker program. Hear from Tom in his own words how biomarker testing changed his life.
My name is Tom, and I'm a colon cancer survivor. I was having some abdominal pain back in 2012, and it was during a routine physical that I was telling my doctor that, and he told me it needed to get checked out. And within a couple of days, I was having a CT scan, and the next day I was in front of a surgeon. Initially, I thought it was just a situation where the removal was going to be the final process, surgery, and then I was done. But when the surgeon mentioned that I was going to be doing some chemotherapy, then I knew things were a little more severe than I thought. Before the chemo regimens were going to start, my local oncologist was telling me to go get genetics testing done. He didn't tell me that I had to, but he highly suggested that I get this done. And I thought about it actually for a couple of days, but
Tom was referred for genetic counseling at Cone because of his early onset of cancer and his family history of cancer. Biomarker testing can help us determine if somebody would be at a higher risk for having a hereditary cancer syndrome, or it could tell us whether somebody might have different types of treatment options.
I'm John Strickler. I'm a GI medical oncologist here at the Duke Cancer Institute. We work very closely with our community oncologists to help identify patients who might benefit from some of our innovative clinical trials. So this local medical oncologist worked hard and found Tom and referred Tom to me. The day I met Tom, he was a different guy than you'll see right now. So he had been treated for around 2 years with conventional chemotherapy. This is chemotherapy that's been around for many years. The treatments he had been on to that point are not curative. They're really designed to help people live longer and hopefully preserve quality of life. Unfortunately, Tom had experienced disease progression on all of those standard therapies, so he had very limited options left. And at the time that he came in, he had significant symptoms from his cancer. It had spread in his abdomen in a way that was causing him tremendous pain. I think he would agree that it was a very difficult time for him in his life. When we met him, he was struggling with severe pain despite being on very large doses of narcotics. And he was not sleeping well, not eating well, losing weight, and feeling pretty terrible.
the people I work with have seen me in good times and bad. A lot of them don't tell you that, they didn't think you were going to make it. They don't want that in your ear, but they tell me that now. My whole life was, built around doing a lot of physical stuff, bike riding, running, tennis, and when this happened, it was something that I had to give up for a little while. When I first got the biomarker testing, I didn't know what it was going to lead to until the chemo sessions, the radiation, they didn't work. I knew it was the biomarker testing that got me involved in a treatment session that really made the difference.
There are many different types of biomarkers out there, and it can be confusing when you hear that term to understand what a biomarker is. The types of biomarkers that we focus on are what we call predictive biomarkers. So we're looking for biomarkers that would predict that a patient would benefit from a personalized treatment. That's what occurred in Tom's case, where he had a predictive biomarker that suggested that he might benefit from immune therapy. When we gave the immune therapy, it basically unleashed his immune system to go ahead and attack his tumor.
When I came back for that second session, I asked Dr. Strickler, do I still need to be on these pain meds?
He was still on high doses of narcotics, but he found that his pain was much better controlled very quickly after receiving that first dose. So he came back to see me 2 weeks later and he said, Dr. Strickler, I want to just stop them. And I said, look, Tom, we got to take a step back. Let's slowly taper off these pain medicines and see if we can get you down to 0 on them and see if we can get this pain under control. And amazingly, he tapered off those medicines over a couple of weeks. And by the time I was seeing him 2 weeks later, he was back to biking and exercising and had his life back again.
The sessions that were going on or the type that you continue to do while you can tolerate them. So I'd gone over 2 years with this treatment, and CT scans are showing now that it's not even on the radar. When I came off of the treatments in 2017, I was able to get back to bike riding, running, and doing whatever I was doing prior to that. When we first started treatment, my mother was looking for a way to kind of make a presence, so she actually made a donation to the Cancer Institute where I was having the treatment done, and there's a plaque in the garden out there that'll be there forever, so it's kind of a symbol for her and myself, and just a little way of her sending me a message and the doctors a message for taking care of my cancer.
In the old days of cancer treatment, it was one size fits all. A patient was diagnosed with an advanced cancer and we would give a standard chemotherapy regardless of what was driving that tumor. In the era of personalized medicine, we're increasingly finding that a cancer type is not just one tumor, it may be any number of different types of tumors. And we're finding personalized treatments that uncover the biology of the tumor and attack the drivers of that tumor.
And often when I talk to people about my story, and I know they have cancer too, they want to know what I go through, what are my side effects. Side effects are always a hot topic, but I also ask them if they got screened, because that's the thing that led me to the treatment that really made the big difference.
While not everybody has the same reaction to this personalized medicine, or may not have the same outcome in regards to their biomarker testing, it brings a lot of hope, and it's very exciting to be in this time when we can utilize this information to help benefit our patients.
Whenever someone comes here for trial, we never know for sure if the trial is going to help the patient, and we're clear to patients that not everyone benefits, but I felt like he had as good a shot as anyone of getting benefit from that trial. I think about that first day when he was so sick and struggled even to sit up in a chair to talk to me that day, to the path that he went through over 2 years, to seeing him get his life back and hearing his stories of riding 100 miles on his bike, which was always a dream of ours when we first met, because it's something he really loved.
I always used to come to him and I'd show him my bike rides that I was doing, and he'd always say, 30 miles, couldn't go 40. 80 miles, couldn't go 100. So he's always encouraging me. I know he always liked to see that, but he was really huge in everything he's done for me.
And he did it, all these years later. It's very motivational for me as an oncologist that our research can change the lives of patients, and that these advancements are a lot closer than they seem.
I've always looked at cancer as being like an opponent that has to be defeated. I mean, you don't have time to sit back and think about stuff. You need to know what's the plan to get rid of this, and that's the plan you're on. You're not in control now. So you're pretty much along for the ride, but you need to be the best patient you can be. Just having it as an opponent that you need to defeat is the type of mentality I think is good for the cancer patient. So to be more on offense than on defense, if you can be.
Tom's story is incredible, and we're so appreciative of him sharing his story and being a spokesperson for Know Your Biomarker and raising awareness about clinical trials as well. The GCCA's Clinical Trial Awareness Program addresses many of the same challenges that exist in biomarker testing. We seek to encourage conversations with healthcare professionals about clinical trials. So we offer questions to ask your healthcare team. We define words that you'll find in a clinical trial study listing, and we share patient experiences of what it's like to participate in a clinical trial as elements of this program. International Clinical Trial Awareness Day takes place on May 20th, a date selected for the anniversary of what is recognized as Day One of research in 1747 that led to the foundation of clinical trials as we know them today. While International Clinical Trial Awareness Day celebrates researchers that have dedicated their careers to science, we celebrate participants as well as the researchers. We know that without both researchers and participants, there would be no clinical trials. It's a partnership. Stay tuned for opportunities for patients and caregivers to share their clinical trial experiences this May. This year, we're taking our materials to new levels to provide patients and caregivers the information and background they'll need to have those conversations. But sometimes tools that are needed aren't the ones you think of right away. There's a lot of education, and we're talking about it today, about how important it is to have that conversation about biomarker testing and finding out about clinical trials. But what happens when that conversation isn't a dialogue, when a patient and caregiver aren't being heard? Biomarker testing and clinical trials are topics that can leave a patient and a caregiver seeking out a new healthcare team. And coming this year, we'll be sharing what it's like to switch a healthcare team at a critical point in care. Because it's one thing to know that you deserve the best healthcare team to fight your cancer, and it's another thing to have that conversation. There are so many reasons that people stay with their healthcare provider, even though they no longer feel their needs are being met. And we know it's a difficult conversation to have. And we know there are many valid reasons, but we hope to empower people through sharing experiences from the people who've been there and have left a healthcare team to find a better fit. That's just one example of some upcoming materials and initiatives you'll see coming from the Know Your Biomarker program and the clinical trial awareness. There are numerous challenges and barriers to increasing participation in clinical trials. If your organization is working to increase participation and ensure that clinical trials have a diverse group of participants, we'd love to hear what you're doing and find out if there's an opportunity for us to support your efforts. We believe that the more we can work together with a unified message, the more people we'll reach and the more successful we'll be in our goals. If your organization has resources such as a clinical trial finder, navigators, discussion guides, we'd be happy to link to your website. And this is not limited only to clinical trials. If your organization is providing a service to your community, we want to help get the word out. You can message us on social media or send an email to info@globalcca.org. You can also reach out to me directly at nicole@globalcca.org. Our goal is to connect the community, and we're glad that you've joined us today. Last but not least is our Patient Advocate Toolkit, currently available in English and Brazilian Portuguese as a downloadable PDF. You can find it on our website and also in the Attendee Hub. We debuted the toolkit virtually at TJCC's conference in Brazil with the following pre-recorded presentation. If you have an upcoming strategy session or board meeting, this could be a great opportunity to pause and do a check-in on how your organization is structured, and if there are opportunities to add to your strategic plan or build one if one does not already exist. For those interested in starting a new organization, this toolkit should serve as a guide and workbook to ensure that you are building a strong organization with support systems in place to ensure that you are able to fulfill your mission. Prior to establishing a nonprofit organization, it is important to research and see if another organization is already in existence in your community. Partnering with an existing nonprofit can save resources and is a great way to further your impact. It can be incredibly rewarding to establish and run a nonprofit. The Raymond Foundation, as shown here, is an organization that Martha Raymond founded in memory of her parents, who both sadly passed away from colorectal cancer. Martha works with many organizations, including the Global Colon Cancer Association, and has saved countless lives through her efforts. For many in the nonprofit world, individuals dedicate their careers or volunteer their time to honor a loved one that we have lost or to prevent others from going through what they went through as a cancer patient or as a caregiver. Colorectal cancer is a disease that we know through screening, early detection, and education, we can save lives. Through advances in science, in biomarker testing, patients who previously would have no hope for beating this disease are finding that through precision or personalized medicine that they are thriving and living with cancer, or in some cases, living NED, no evidence of disease. However, it can also be frustrating and stressful, particularly in securing funding or making sure you have the resources you need to focus on your mission, as well as the staff or volunteers with the right expertise to be successful. That's why we encourage a lot of research and planning before establishing a nonprofit. The National Center on Charitable Statistics reveals that nearly 30% of nonprofits fail to exist after 10 years. The number one reason for a nonprofit needing to shut their doors really comes down to planning, which also includes planning for the unknown, such as COVID-19. Many organizations struggle with what the appropriate amount of money is to be in their endowment or a reserve fund. For organizations that are breaking even each year, we encourage you to discuss with your board of directors the benefits of planning for times such as these, where funding can be scarce while the need for services has never been greater. In this section of the toolkit, you'll find information about the fundamentals of patient advocacy organizations. This includes what leadership boards and committees are needed. Typically, a patient advocacy organization will have a board of directors, a medical scientific advisory board, and a patient and caregiver advisory board. It is important to have a diverse group of individuals on each of your boards. Seek out individuals who are experts in their area of business, whether that is finance, marketing and communications, fundraising, or operations. Whatever it may be, your organization will find value and need people who bring a strong background in these areas to be successful. Committees are an important aspect to fulfilling your mission. Sometimes committee members are also board members. Other organizations will establish individuals to be part of a committee, but not a board of directors, which can be a large commitment, both financially and the time that would be needed to dedicate to the organization. Committees can be a great way to introduce people with specific expertise and get more involved with your organization, and possibly join the board of directors in the future. As you build your board and committees, ensure that patients, caregivers, medical providers, government officials, and advocates are invited to the table. Ask your patient and caregiver community what areas of expertise could they offer as a volunteer. You could have a patient who also represents a caregiver experience or fills a fundraising or operations role. This section of the toolkit helps identify priorities in the areas of fundraising, marketing, and communications. For established organizations, this could be a great exercise to do with your coworkers. Each person to fill out the toolkit and then come together and see where answers are similar or where do they not align. Some examples of questions in the fundamentals section include, for the areas of marketing and communications, what are the key talking points about your organization that you want to use when speaking to the media? Who from your organization is authorized to speak on behalf of the organization? Organizations may identify staff or board members with a particular expertise to speak to the media or on behalf of the organization only on specific topics. This can be particularly beneficial when it comes to a highly technical issue. Other questions include, does our media kit need updating? Or do we have a media kit? Being prepared, particularly around Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, which is celebrated in various months across the world, can be a deciding factor for a media outlet featuring your organization and the cause. The toolkit goes through what a media kit should include. Securing funding is a key function of a nonprofit to ensure that they can carry out their strategic plan. The fundraising section of the toolkit covers the different types of funding opportunities and highlights the importance of having a diverse set of donors, both from the types of donors, but also the size of donations. The type of donors could be individuals, corporations, foundations, and even government. But for the size of donations, those individuals who may give $5 each month through workplace giving, those are critical individuals and a very important part of your funding. These are also some of your best prospects for an estate gift, where an individual will name your nonprofit in their will. Section 2 of the toolkit focuses on collaborating with stakeholders. Again, planning is key. While saying yes to every partnership opportunity that comes your way is tempting, ensuring your organization has the resources to be a successful partnership is important. Different types of partnerships include patient organizations, healthcare professional associations, government bodies and elected officials, industry, and foundations. Partnerships can help your organization reach an audience you otherwise would not have access to. It can take years to build a successful relationship with a partner, so by connecting with another organization and joining their efforts on a specific initiative, it can help your organization meet its predetermined goals in a shorter period of time. This image is from an event at the ASCO annual meeting. ASCO is the American Society for Clinical Oncology, and this is where the GI Cancers Alliance partnered with ASCO and convened a panel. This section of the toolkit features worksheets on partnerships. Utilizing the toolkit, you can walk through the steps of an existing partnership or a prospect that you are looking to partner with. Some of the questions we encourage nonprofits to ask themselves regarding existing or future partnerships include: who are potential partners for this project? Are other organizations currently addressing this issue? And if so, is this an opportunity to partner with another group and work together? Or what type of agreement will be needed to ensure that the partnership stays on track and that both your organization and the partner company or organization is held accountable and committed to the project? How will we know we were successful? How will we measure our impact? Can local or national government help accomplish our goals? And if so, what would their role be? This has been a brief overview of the toolkit. Thanks so much.